Let's create a new project and add several buildings to it. I'm going to call this Kimon's second project. And call this 201, project 201. You can put whatever you want in here and then just put some numbers in for a budget and just proceed. So we've created a brand new project. Now you see two listed on my list here. The 101 project was the 2 site exercises we did, and the second project is blank. We'll go back to adding another scheme here, again from scratch. Scheme 1, clinic. And I'm going to go back to the Parkland Hospital, Dallas. Let's see if this finds it in Google. Yeah, there we go. This is approximately the site we were using earlier. We could just copy that one over, but let's just say that we're going to do a study for a new clinic on a specific site close to Parkland Hospital. I'm just going to randomly pick a site here. Here looks something that's opened right here. Yeah, that looks good to me. So we're going to pick this site here to create a new clinic and proceed. So this can be used for a lot of different studies. You can also use it to study existing buildings. So we're on a site now with a property line. We can continue to edit it like we did before. But let's say we want to add several buildings here. I see a building over here that looks like some kind of an office building possibly. We have to be in edit mode. That's one thing I forgot to mention in the last session. There's a view mode and an edit mode. So in view mode, we're in edit mode automatically because we created a new scheme and we're editing it. But if we're in view mode, this can be toggled back and forth, and even depending on the user, as you share your scheme to others, you can click around and look at information, but you cannot edit. So for example, this site polygon is 191,000 square feet. So I can see that information. I can see other information attached to it, but I cannot edit. I can move around, I can zoom in, zoom out, and do all the reporting that we're going to do later, but I can't edit or add anything. And it says view mode in red up here. So if I go back into edit mode, then it allows me to start editing information and adding a new building like we wanted to do, or clicking on the site again to edit it. So this particular site polygon that we generated rapidly earlier is also locked. So there's 2 levels of locks: the overall edit and view mode for the entire scheme, and individual elements can be locked and unlocked. Let's unlock this site plan, and then we can do like we did earlier to kind of clean up the shape of this maybe, and change the shape. And now we're going to add a building. So let's add several buildings. We'll go ahead and maybe add, this is an existing building, so it doesn't even have to be a new building. Let's say we're trying to document the existing building here. There's several shapes on the right here. As you open up these panels here, there's information about adding empty buildings and other information. Let's just start with buildings, and as you scroll down, see some basic shapes which we can continue to edit, and the number of floors. Let's say we're going to add a 4-story building. Let's turn off core spaces for now. Core spaces are elevators and other type of spaces. This will add a L-shaped 4-story building to the site. There it is, building 1, and I can grab the edge and move it, or I can grab the toggle the move button and move it into position. I can zoom in with the buttons or with my scroll wheel. I'm using the space bar to kind of toggle back and forth between the panning here, grabbing the building, moving it. And then I can also rotate. There's a rotate button here. So I can grab this building, click anywhere you want actually. I'm going to click right on the center of this building. First click, then a little line appears which you can then rotate. I'm just eyeballing it now, but if I had actual dimensions and angles, I could also do that as well. Then I'm going to grab the edge just like we did with the polygon for the site and move this building into position. So we've approximated the footprint here. It's a 4-story building that we added, so it's actually moving the entire 4-story plate. We can go to individual floors and edit it as well. If you go to the left now, you actually see that this is a 4-story building, and it's a tree structure, and you'll see that there's no spaces on each floor. We did not add spaces. This is strictly a massing with floor slabs with a default floor-to-floor height of an existing building. Let's do the same for a new building, this new clinic that we want to add. Let's make it a 2-story. Let's actually get a U-shaped one here, and we can continue to edit it, obviously. 2-story, no core spaces, add a U-shaped building for the new clinic that we're going to add to the site. Same thing again here. We can grab it, rotate it. You can click the rotate button, but there are also keyboard shortcuts down here. If you click down at the bottom on keyboard shortcuts, there's an R button for rotate. So we could, for example, hit R, and the same rotate functionality appears. And I can move it into position, stretch the edge out, and as I'm stretching, it's building a BIM essentially of this shape and creating reports of square footage and areas and even early cost estimates as we start moving this building around to create a new clinic. If I double click on this building, it has a generic name. We'll call it clinic number 2019. This is optional. You don't have to enter anything here, but I'm going to call it a number 2019. You can put a start and an end date for construction. This shows up later on in reports, and 4D simulations as well. So I'm going to say September 2019. Oops, let's go to 2019. Yeah, 2019, September 17th. So you see the dates there. There's a lot of other functions that you can add here, but let's just stop at that. And we've added a building. So this is a 2-story building. This is a 1-story building. It's in the same vicinity of the previous site that we created in Parkland Hospital. It's a completely different project, completely different scheme, but geospatially located in the same location. Some other functionality on the right, since we're looking at shapes again. These buildings we obviously eyeballed and moved things around, but there's also the functionality of turning on the dimensions. So right here, if you toggle dimensions, it turns red, and you'll notice dimension markers on the side of the building. And let's actually turn this to map view so we can see it a little bit better. I'm turning on map, Esri World Map View, World Street View, so it's turning off the satellite view and going back to maps. And we see the building there, and let's go back, select the building, toggle the shapes, and you see these dimensions changing as we're dragging the edges around. Or you can also click on a dimension and manually type in a number there. That'll actually change the dimension right there and change it to exactly the dimension that you want. So there's many different ways of editing shapes and adding dimensions or adding new nodes, as we talked about earlier, and to create a new building like this. So in addition to creating buildings with shapes like this, you could also do a lot of importing. We're going to get a lot into other importing functionality later on, but for example, if I click on the lower right, Import Export, and I went to the Import tab, you can import from Google Earth. So if you have a Google Earth or Google Maps shape of a building that you created in another program, that's all we really need is what shape is it, import it in. If it's in the right location, it'll land it here near Parkland Clinic in Parkland Hospital in Dallas. And that's pretty much it for adding buildings. There's a lot more that's possible here. We'll be covering a little bit more later, but go ahead and try this yourself. Create a new project, create a new scheme, add a couple buildings, try different ways of editing, and we'll move on to the next lesson.